Okay. Hello, everyone. Judy Davidson with Franchoice, and I have with me today Lexi Ingraffia from Guidant Financial. Hi, Lexi.
Hey, Judy. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. So today's subject is fun with franchise financing. Woohoo! So most people, financing can be a dry subject, right? Especially for especially for people like me that aren't so numbers oriented. So, want to try to keep this as fun and interactive and engaging as possible as we talk about the financing options, which are very key to someone helping them achieve their dream of business ownership. So, I've been helping people since 2005, and I have been working hand in hand with Guidant the entire time. I know you started, Guidance started even before that. So I think a good place to start would be maybe a little background on Guidant Financial.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you said 2005 is when you started working with us?
Yes.
Yeah. So we were, just 2003 is when we were founded. So you were right on the beginning cusp of us kind of coming around to the whole franchising world, which was really exciting. I came on a little later, of course, but yeah, they've been doing this since 2003. And believe it or not, David Nielsen and Jeremy Ames, the original co-founders, are still very involved. David is, I would say, more the face of the company. Jeremy is our chief product officer, if you will, so helps develop any new advances in the company and just kind of lead that, which has been pretty nice. And they've just been really involved in even, me coming on board years later, just every aspect. So it's been really neat to see. But in terms of funding and what we're able to offer, they've slowly but surely built on that. And our biggest form of funding, which you're going to cover in just a minute, is obviously the rollover program, where people are able to use their retirement funds tax and penalty free. But I definitely think that people are just, like you said, a little afraid to start on this topic, right? And this is kind of what we need to discuss in terms of just getting on that same page.
Right. And I want to start with, before we get into the weeds of the different options, what is the best advice that you would give to people regarding franchise financing in general?
I think you and I are going to be on the same page here, but it's start early. That relationship between you, me, and the client, of course, is key. You can't really start looking at businesses until you have an idea of, number one, what you can afford, and number two, what you feel comfortable with as far as coming out of pocket, right? That's a bigger conversation. Right. So start early is my biggest piece of advice.
I would agree with you, because a lot of people think, well, I'll check out the franchises first before I can, before I worry about the financing later. But it's kind of like being, at the altar. If you're going to a wedding, it's kind of like, here we are, the franchisor and the candidate, ready to get married. And it's like the client saying, hang on, wait a minute, let me finance this ring first.
Exactly. Let's go on a couple dates first.
Yeah, no, that's all good and well, but the franchise investigation process is about 4 to 6 weeks, and most financing options take about the same time. So they really need to happen in concert at the same time. And right. You touched on relationships. People can do a lot of research online, but the only way to be awarded a franchise is to go through a thorough mutual due diligence process. So it is kind of like a 4-legged stool. Me, the candidate, Guidant Financial, the financing options, and the franchisors. All 4 of us are working together to help people achieve their dream of business ownership. And it's a great feeling.
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay, so and we're going to be together. We get together twice a year with our franchise and finance partners. We'll be together in a couple of weeks in Nashville, first time meeting in person for a while. And the purpose of the meetings is relationship building, is obviously education, collaboration, of us working together to help people achieve their dream. So let's do a high level overview of what the main financing options are.
Yeah. So very high level. I don't want to get too into the weeds. Obviously, I don't want people dazing off on me right now. But as I mentioned, Guidance bread and butter, the reason we were founded in the first place was because of the rollover program, better known as the ROBS program. I know it's a horrible acronym, but that is the IRS for you. I promise you that's not our marketing team.
And what
but
does ROBS stand for?
Good question. It stands for Rollover for Business Startups. So it gives people the opportunity to use qualified retirement funds to invest in their business,
Right.
tax and penalty free. And I know that sounds crazy, but I promise you won't get hit with any penalties or taxes. But that's first and foremost.
With the number of ROBS plans that you have, that Guidant Financial has done, which I would imagine by now it's in the thousands.
Right? Oh, yeah. More than you can count. Yeah.
Right. None of your clients have had any tax consequences.
Oh, no, none at all. And as you can imagine, most people are a little concerned about the IRS. And that's honestly, regardless if you're doing ROBS or not. If you're starting a new business, you're going to be concerned about the IRS. But in particular, if you're using retirement funds, I just want people to be at ease. We're very conservative with our methods, and our audit rates are less than 1%. Those who have been audited, they've come out squeaky clean. We've never had any issues with the IRS.
Awesome. Okay, so that's the ROBS. What would be the next most popular way to finance a franchise?
For sure, the SBA. And honestly, a lot of my conversations start out discussing the SBA, or the Small Business Administration. Those are the government-backed loans, right? Yeah. And it's because most people are familiar with the lending process. At this point, you've probably purchased a home, a car, right? You understand how a loan works. Right. And so we'll a lot of times go over that first and foremost, so they understand, number one, what they need to qualify for this program, how they want to pay their down payments. Because if, for instance, you don't necessarily have the cash to put on the loan, you can, ding, 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 use your ROBS rollover as the down payment on your SBA loan, so that you're not depleting your cash on hand, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would have to say the majority of the candidates that I work with choose that option. It's not just one financing strategy. It's doing the rollover to get the down payment for the SBA, and maybe some additional working capital.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of these funding options that we're going to discuss, you can mix and match. So it's nice to know that you have options.
Great. Okay. And the next most popular option?
I would say especially lately, it's been the portfolio loan, which is it's a securities backed loan. So it's not going to be for everyone, but for those who have a decent amount, I would say anything over $100,000 in a traditional brokerage, those funds, stocks, bonds, mutual funds outside of retirement, they can take basically like a line of credit against it, right? For some fairly low rates. I mean, even lower than that of an SBA loan right now, which has been pretty cool.
Wow. Okay. Does an IRA, is that part of it as well?
So no, good question. No. So anything outside of retirement. So an IRA is an independent retirement plan, right? So
outside of retirement.
Yep. So just traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
And then I know, of course, we have a Heloc, a home equity line of credit. That's a great way for people to finance their franchise, right? If they already have an open line of credit on their house, or even
right. Well, now is
they can establish it as long as they're still gainfully employed.
Right. And now is a good time to really consider that, especially if you're, like you said, if you're working. You could always just take the line, have it there for emergencies. If that's not what you're really looking to do to purchase your first location, it has to make sense with your overall goal, right? You don't want a home equity line of credit to hinder you from potentially taking out an SBA loan later down the road because you've used up all of the equity in your home. And a lot of times these SBA lenders need the home as collateral, right? So you just want to make sure that we keep that in mind. So these are things that we'll discuss on the call strategically.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I guess in your conversations with them, you have to talk about today, where are we at today, and the
Implementation.
implications of how this will affect, them personally or their business down the road,
right?
As well.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Holistically, the big picture.
Mhm.
What else are there? What other options?
Really, there's just a couple ancillary products, those that are, let's say, looking for fast cash. Maybe an unsecured loan is the way to go, right? Usually you can get up to 150,000. You can take it out pretty quick, just a couple of weeks. Those are going to generally have higher rates, but if you know you can pay it back pretty quick, then no harm, no foul.
Is that
right?
like Uncle Guido? No?
Yes, love it. Oh, yeah. So
ask, there is also an Sba Express Loan. Maybe you can just touch on that a bit.
Sure. So an SBA loan is an SBA loan is an SBA loan, but how we categorize these SBA Express loans from, let's say, just a traditional SBA loan, these express loans are, right now, they're not as express as they typically would be, just given the pandemic and everything. You can imagine some of these banks are a little inundated at the moment, but they're still getting things done. But it's typically for service-based businesses, those that do not require any brick and mortar, that are $150,000 or less, right? So total investment can't be over $150,000.
Okay, total investment for the business.
Right. Exactly. Now, if the loan falls below 150 after you've paid your down payment, it technically falls into the express category, but that's another conversation for another day, and one I definitely don't want to get into the weeds about. But generally, the biggest thing that people understand about those express loans is collateral is not required.
Right.
So the house doesn't have to be on the deal.
Right. Okay. So a traditional SBA loan would be for larger amounts for a brick and mortar business, would you say?
Generally,
and then
yeah.
For service-based business, they should talk to you about an Sba Express Loan.
Exactly.
They used to be called working capital loans, right?
Right, because traditionally they were meant for people who were already in business 2 or more years, who just maybe needed some additional working capital up to $150,000. So the loophole for startups is that they have to be service-based and not, they shouldn't have to prove to the bank that they need some sort of lease to actually operate.
Lease, okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I think you help people with equipment leasing, financing as well.
Yeah, and those are very rare. In most cases, the rates are a little bit higher, but it's, lease to own essentially. If you can afford to do an SBA loan, I'm always going to recommend to go that route anyway, because usually it's cheaper rates and the term is typically longer, right? So you have 10 years to pay off an SBA loan. With these equipment lease deals, usually it's like 4 to 5.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the main takeaway is that a lot of people aren't aware that you can use your retirement fund to finance your business. It's all done without any tax, penalties or early withdrawal consequences. And so I think that's the main takeaway, and that's probably the lion's share of the financing that you do. Would you say? I
would say it's probably just about every single one of my deals has a rollover attached to it. I would say 80% have to do something with ROBS, and the other 20 are just a couple of like ancillary. Now, of that 80%, are there SBA loans involved? Of course, but yeah, for sure, the majority is ROBS.
And the main takeaway also is that there are options. And
absolutely.
To talk with you and figure out the whole financing strategy, at the same time that we're going through the due diligence process.
Exactly. There's no commitment. There's no harm, right? We're not going to pull anybody's credit. It's just a full conversation to understand your options and make sure that you feel comfortable with this. There's no point in getting excited about something if you don't think you're comfortable pulling X amount of your, of your funds.
Right, exactly. Well, Lexi, thank you for your time. I appreciate you. There will be more information about Guidant Financial and Lexi in the newsletter. So as always, do the thing. Click and like and subscribe. I don't know. That's my first time.
Good enough. Good enough. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.